everyone, we are going to be working on our first website, which is a art portfolio sharing the work that you've created this semester or this year in Intro to Digital Studio. A template is a good way to start getting familiar with working with your HTML and CSS together. And if you continue on in web page design, you'll be making your websites entirely from scratch, not relying on other people's code. So to get started, we're opening up a program called Brackets. If you press F4 and then start typing brackets, it pops up, has this little icon here with a couple of brackets. And this is what it looks like when you first open. Now, Brackets will be open to the Brackets manual, but honestly, Brackets is so easy to use, you probably don't even need the manual. So once you have Brackets open, you should have already downloaded the template website, but if you haven't, you can do that from the assignment in Google Classroom. So once you've downloaded the portfolio template, our first step is actually going to be to rename it. And that's going to be the very first thing we're going to do. So you can either click right on the text, or you can right click and go to rename, either option. And we just want to rename this descriptively. So your first name, don't use any spaces. You can always use an underscore or a dash. Initial of your last name, and whatever you're calling it from there. So again, no spaces, and please do not do your full last name. We just want to follow some safety best practices and not do anything that's truly identifying when we're actually hosting these websites online later on. Then you can click out of it, and that gives you the name. Back over on the bracket side, we're just going to click on Getting Started, which is just that default folder that's open with the manual, and we're going to click on Open Folder, and then we're just going to choose our renamed website portfolio and open that up. I want to mention you can also go to File, Open Folder, or use Option Command O to open a folder. So now that I have my folder open, you'll see how it's organized. I have my index page, I have a media folder that has 4 placeholder images, I have a style sheet that's already set up. And you'll notice the style sheet and the HTML page all have a lot of comments to make it really clear what is happening in each line of code. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to double click on my index page, and I'm going to double click on my style sheet so they are both open as working files over here. And on the top right of the sidebar, there's this little double arrow that allows me to add either a vertical or horizontal split. Now, if you have a slightly different version of Brackets than I do, the arrows might look different, but they'll still be in that same general location. So I'm going to go with a horizontal split in this case, and I'm just going to drag my style sheet down to the other slot. This way I can see my HTML and my CSS at the same time. Now, a couple of things about working in Brackets. When you click on the little lightning bolt icon, it opens something called Live Preview, where you can see your changes happening as you're doing them in the browser itself. I'm just going to toggle full screen on so that I can see Brackets and I can see my preview at the same time. I can adjust which one is taking up more space depending on what's helpful. So that's the live preview. I do want to mention that occasionally the live preview fails for whatever reason. Most of the time when that happens, you just want to enable the experimental live preview. On my computer, for some reason, the default connected to Chrome doesn't work, but the experimental live preview, which connects to Safari, does. So sometimes you want this unchecked and it'll go to Chrome. If that doesn't work, just check it and it'll go to Safari. Worst case scenario, and neither of them works, what you'll do is come over to Finder. You'll find your portfolio. This is a different one, but same sort of thing. And you'll just right click and then open with the browser, or actually just opening it will probably open it with the browser. And then you have access to the portfolio. And anytime you make changes in Brackets, you would just need to save them and then reload the page over here. So I'm going to head back over two brackets. So a couple different ways we can see our changes. And our next changes are going to be to the HTML. Now, as far as working with the HTML goes, we have the doc type set as HTML, so it lets the browser know, hey, we're actually using HTML5. We have the HTML element that's containing everything, setting the language to English, which is going to improve the accessibility for screen readers or having the page auto-translated, things like that. We have the head element with the things that the browser needs to know. We have the title, and this is the first thing that we're going to change, and that displays on the tab over here. So this, again, should be descriptive. So it might just be your first name, something like this. Again, don't do your last name. You can always use your last initial if you want to, but we want to make sure we're not doing anything that is truly identifying you as an individual, because we just want to keep everybody safe. All right, so we have the title over here, which will display on the tab. Now, most things update well with the live preview. Occasionally, there are things where you need to save and sometimes even reload the live preview just with Command R or the refresh button for them to actually update it. So it looks like the tab is one of those things. So we have the link going to our style sheet. Because the style sheet is in the same directory as the index page that's active here, all we need is the name of the style sheet for the path. So that's all working correctly. And then we have some metadata, which is just making sure that whatever size this page is loading on, the browser is handling the scale correctly. Lastly, we're just setting the character set that can be used. UTF-8 is probably the most common character set that's used, and it has an incredibly large selection of characters. So after the end of the head, we have the body, and this is where everything goes. So you're going to be going through and switching out the content that's here with your own content. So again, just updating the H1 heading to be accurate for your page. Looks like my live preview isn't working as well as I'd like, so I'll see if just toggling it on and off updates it a little bit more successfully here. Yeah, ideally the live preview should literally be going live, but if it's not for whatever reason, just being glitchy today, you can always just Command R and it'll update whatever that change is. So you're going to switch the title of the tab. You're going to switch the heading for the actual title of the web page itself. Down below the header area, you'll notice that we have a main element that's containing a section, and the section is this over here, and this is our gallery area where it's changing from image to image. And so this is going to have some input and some labels. The thumbnail image is inside the label, and they are controlling the figures and which figure with the larger version of the image is actually visible at any point in time. You're going to want to use Finder to just switch these images out for images that you're actually using. So I have an image I'm just going to grab over here. It's a JPEG. I can either drag and drop it, or I can just copy and paste it. If this happened to be a PNG, it would just automatically replace my first image. Or if I had it named differently, that would be okay too, even if it was a PNG. You just want to make sure that there are no spaces or weird characters in the name. That's something that's important whenever you're making web pages. So you'll just either drag and drop or copy and paste the images that you want into the media folder. If you have a video that you'd like to include, you can go into Tahoma and load the video, render it out as a GIF. If anyone needs help with that, let me know. And you can put pretty much PNGs, JPEGs, or GIFs in this folder, and they'll all work correctly. Once the images are in the folder, we need to update all of the image paths to be accurate. So for this first image, I'm actually using a JPEG, so I'm going to correct that. And I want to do that both for the thumbnail and for the larger image in the figure. You'll notice that there's a title and an alt attribute for my images, and you might want to update these to be more descriptive. The caption should definitely be more descriptive. Again, usually the live preview will be updating a lot more live, but now when I reload, we can see how that's looking. So it's just going to be a little bit of a process, switching things in and out. So there are already slots for 4 images, so your 4 favorite images that you've created this semester or this year. And if you want more than 4, you certainly can have it. There's just a couple of things that you'll do. So up in the thumbnail area, you're going to copy the last input and label and paste it down below. And we're just going to increment all of the numbers for the IDs by 1 so that the numbering is accurate. I know that I have the image1.png that I'm not using, so I'm just going to put that here, but you would replace the source for the path with the actual image that you want to use for number 5. And down in the figure area, exact same thing. I'm going to copy the last figure with Command C, paste with Command V, and then update the numbers and increment them by 1. So in this case, going up to 5, switching out the path to be the correct image that I want as this new image. And if it's not updating, just save and reload. And so now I have several different images that I can change between over here. Once you have your images all set, we have this aside, which has the About section, where you're just going to add a little bit of an artist statement, and there's also a spot to add a selfie or self-portrait of some kind. Now, this could be a quick doodle that you do. It could be a photograph of your hands on the keyboard or using the iPad. It could be a picture of you from an angle where your face isn't super clear. Now, if you were doing this as an actual artist, usually you do a picture that's fairly identifiable of yourself. Sometimes more stylized, sometimes not. But in our cases, again, we're just trying to follow safety practices. So try not to do something where it's truly identifiable. And if you just want to skip this entirely, you can just delete the figure as a whole. But if you're going to use an image, you'll just put it inside the media folder using Finder, and you'll just update the name of the image and the format to be the actual name and format that you're using. Now, down below here, I have some lorem ipsum, which is just a placeholder text with a paragraph. And what you're going to do is you're going to replace the lorem ipsum with your own little bit of an artist statement. So just talking about yourself as a digital artist, maybe it's about your process, the digital areas that you really prefer and why. There's a slideshow in Google Classroom that you can take a look at if you need some further inspiration. And if you want to have multiple paragraphs, you can. Just go down to the next line. A nice thing about brackets is when you do the opening tag, it's automatically going to create the closing tag for you. Now you only need 1 paragraph, but certainly feel free to do more if you'd like. And then at the bottom of the HTML, we just have the copyright information. And again, first name, last initial if you want, but don't do your full name. Now, that's really it for the changes on the HTML side. So when you have everything in place for your content, then we're going to start working on making changes to the style sheet. So that's our CSS down here. Now, you may notice that we have something new up at the top here. The root is where we add any variables that we want to use in the CSS. And the variables are really helpful because it lets us use these colors or whatever it happens to be in multiple places, but only have one place where we actually need to change it. So that can be really helpful. Directly below here, we have the background colors, and you'll notice we have some different backgrounds. Using that variable, you can see how the variables are written. And some of them are used multiple times, some of them are just used once. Now, you can always switch these out for an actual color if you want, but it's really easy just to change the colors over here. Cool thing about brackets, if you press Command E, it opens up this quick edit view, and maybe you don't want the main color to be white. Maybe you want it to be something completely different. And again, my live preview is being a little glitchy for some reason. A lot of the time when you change the colors, it's going to actually update live as you're doing it. So I'm just going to save and reload, and we can see how that's changing, how everything looks. So one place to change it, everywhere I'm using it, it automatically changes, which makes it just really easy to work with. I can right click, go into quick edit from there as well, and maybe I want it to be just a little bit lighter to start with. And if it doesn't automatically load, Command S, Command R, and I can continue working on changing the colors. Now, there is certainly a lot more information than just the colors. We have the font color for the body, though you could also work with adding some other colors. So let's say I want my heading to have a different color, so I can just add H1 as a selector. I can always use the name of the element to select it, and inside of my curly brackets, I can set either a specific color here, or I can decide I want to use one of my variables and set that there. So if I'm using a variable, I want to write var inside of parentheses, dash dash, the name of the variable. In this case, maybe I'm using dark, but I probably don't want to use dark. So that is how you would add the variable. If you just wanted to add a color instead, because you're only using it in the one place, you might start with black or something, but then you can go into quick edit and you can easily change it to the color that you actually want to display, and then you can see how it updates. So you can add as many colors as you want. Below the colors, we have some styles for the text, and you can add different font families and things like that. Again, if you wanted to change your paragraphs, you could use P as a selector or a side, and whatever you're doing for your fonts. You'll notice that there are a lot of other styles that are further down. So this is for that little image for your selfie. Floating right puts it on the right side. I can have it float left to move to the left instead. In that case, I might want the margin to be on the right. So I can start making those changes to change how things are behaving. Maybe I want that image to be a little bit bigger. Maybe I want it to be a little bit smaller. Lots of things I can play around with. We have some styles for the images. These right here are controlling which image over here and over here are controlling which image is active when the different thumbnails are pressed, so whether they display or whether they don't display. Notice that there are 10 different slots here, so up to 10 different images can be visible or not visible depending on what's active. That should be more than enough. If for whatever reason you did need more, you would just copy the line right here, paste it, increment the number up. And the same thing in this next section here, copy, paste, increment the number up. But again, for the most part, you're unlikely to have that many images, so the 10 is probably fine. We have some other general styles. Most of them aren't things that you'll need to worry about. Just handling how the page is behaving when the size is changing for different setups. All right, so your goal is to really customize this and make it your own with the colors, with the fonts, with those basic design choices, you can really do a lot to control how this is looking and make it significantly better. Just the last couple of things that I want to mention. Whenever you have unsaved changes, there'll be a little circle next to the name of your file over in the working file area. If you just press Command S, it's only going to save the page that you've actively clicked on last. It's not going to save everything. But if you do Option Command S, it's going to save all of your pages. So I always recommend Option Command S in this particular program. When you are completely finished, you're going to upload the folder itself to Google Classroom and turn that in. All right, and that is it for today.